Welcome to the Descenso Zone podcast, where we talk about creativity and personal growth through a lens of curiosity and humor. My guest today is a writer and producer whose credits span kids animation and beyond. He's written for Franklin and Friends, Ollie's Pack, George of the Jungle, and many more. He also co-created the Guava Juice Show for YouTube and Wishfart for the Cartoon Network. We talk about his journey to becoming a writer-producer, ideas around creativity, writing, and collaboration, some behind-the-scenes stories, the impact of AI, and much more. Now, let's get into the zone with Dan Williams. Dan Williams, thank you for being here. It's great to see you.
Thanks for having me, Mike. This is very exciting. I'm very happy to get this time to talk with you and get to know a little bit more about you and maybe you a little bit more about me.
Yeah, for sure. So you're a writer, you're a producer. You've worked on so many shows, Ollie's Pack, Wishfart, Guava Juice, Franklin, George of the Jungle, a bunch more. I want to start at the beginning with you, Dan. Like, how did you get into the business? What was your first entry point? Even when you were a kid, like, were you always interested in movies and TV?
Yes. Yeah. Wait a second, though. I actually forgot. I actually got something specifically for today. For you. I bought it in your merch store.
Whoa, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's not in my merch store. I don't know where you got that. But
I'm selling it. I'm selling it on my merch store for you.
I kind of want one.
Well, maybe I can hook you up. I know the guy who makes them. So
that's amazing.
I figured, I've been listening to the show. It's great. So might as well show some love here for you while I'm talking to you.
Dude, that's incredible. I legitimately want one. So you're going to have to hook that up after the show.
Okay. I will.
Well, thank you for doing that, man.
Sure. So where did I start? Well, yes, I've always loved movies. I was that kid who, when we went on vacation, family vacations, I was the one inside discovering what was on local TV there, as opposed to sitting outside in the sun, which I still don't really like doing very much. And then TV, the way it was back then, you can discover all sorts of things. So movies, I used to stay up. I used to record. CTV used to show movies overnight before infomercials became the thing, or they just went off air. And I used to set the VCR to record the movies that play, especially horror movies that played overnight. And so, yeah, movies were always my drive, more so than TV. TV's where I make my living now. And TV's sort of taken over in a lot of ways, but always loved movies. And then when I was sort of in high school, I guess I kind of wanted to I thought about being an actor for a while. I enjoy being on stage. I enjoy performing. I have terrible memory, so so stage performance turned out to be something I couldn't never. I don't think I could ever do it. It would be a nightmare if I tried. And then I'm gonna fast forward. I'm gonna rocket through my life. And then in Quebec, I grew up in Quebec. Which is in Canada for your international listeners. There's a step between high school and university called CEGEP, which is sort of like a middle ground where you you're supposed to figure out what you want to do. And there was film production was one of the things you could take there. And I didn't even know it was something you could learn. I don't know how I thought things were made, but I didn't realize it was something you could learn. And so I went into film production there, and that sort of led me to film school. And then even in film school, I was kind of known as the writer. I've always sort of liked the storytelling part of it all, I guess, more so than some of the visual. I mean, I love a great looking movie, but I've never been capable. I'm a terrible photographer. If you'd like me to take a terrible picture of you, please. I just have to take a picture. It will be terrible.
So you went to film school. Did you find, because there's a lot of like mixed reviews around like a film school formal education. A lot of people say it's good to like get your foot in the door, get some experience, network with people. And then there's a whole other group who are like, you don't even need it, just go make a movie. Which group do you find yourself in? I mean, obviously maybe you're a little biased since you did go to film school, but do you think it was helpful for you?
That's a good question. I mean, did you go to film school? I don't remember. No, you didn't, right?
No, I started in like a theater and film program, but found it was very like write an essay about this film. So it was very theoretical and not
right. It was more studies than
practical, so then I ended up pivoting outside of that to English and psychology. But yeah, I had it been more practical, I may have continued. But yeah, it just wasn't.
It's funny, like the world's a different. So I actually have two thoughts about it. So after film school, I became an assistant director. And I was an assistant director for quite a few years. But like my first AD I worked with a lot, who I love, but she used to make fun of me to the crew. Like I was the butt of a joke because I went to film school. She would like say, "Ooh, he's got the film degree." But no, yeah, no one's ever asked about it or anything like that. That said, at the time, it did teach me practical things which were pretty useful in terms of making movie. And maybe more than that, like the reason I became an AD was because of a connection. My professor liked me there. I got a internship at Are You Afraid of the Dark? That led to me getting a job as a director's assistant. And then that led to me becoming an assistant director, which I guess led to me ultimately leaving that and becoming a writer. So
So yeah, it's a trajectory for sure.
the people you meet, it's like there are the people everywhere you go, the people you meet, you never know what's going to happen, especially if they like you or hate you, I suppose too.
Just for anyone listening who might not be as familiar, what is the difference between a director's assistant and an assistant director?
Right. So that's a good question. After my intern, I keep wanting to say stage because that's what you call it in Quebec. After my internship uh, on Are You Afraid of the Dark, which I have an interesting story about. I'll tell you after. I went. I got a call from the coordinators of that show out of the blue, and they were saying this director. They'd brought this director in to direct this movie, and he was miserable and wanted to fire everybody. And he was a real jerk. And so what they did is they offered him a personal assistant. And would I do that job? And I was like, yes, because I just wanted any job, obviously. So I got this job and I went to meet the guy. And they're like, he's in his office, you know, he's not happy. So just go introduce yourself. And so I go to this office and this guy is like, he's from Minneapolis. He's a huge guy. His name's David Burton Morris. I love him. He's great. I think he won the first Sundance ever
Wow.
for this movie called Patty Rocks. And we ended up really getting along well ultimately, but I was terrified. I walk in the office and he's this gruff guy in a cowboy hat. And he's like, go get me a portable humidor. I'm like, yes, sir. I leave. I go to the front. I'm like, what's a humidor? I have no idea. And I'm like, what's a portable humidor? I figured out it's to keep cigars. And what's a portable humidor? Don't know. And so I had to go ask him again. I'm terrified. I'm like, what is a portable humidor? He goes, just like a Tupperware with a lid on it. I'm like, oh, okay, I can do that. And so that was my introduction to him. And so I was sort of his gopher. And so if he needed something, I would get it. I was like, we were filming near the US border. He wanted his USA Today. So I would drive across the border every day to get his newspaper. One time I had to go get ice cream at a Dairy Queen in the middle of nowhere for the entire crew. So I would just do stuff for him. I think ultimately he felt he didn't really need me there. So he would have me do fun stuff and he let me keep the Jeep, his car on the weekends and stuff. And then so that versus an assistant director, they are part of the administration of film. So they help the director and the production staff make sure everything goes on track and keeps the schedule flowing well, making sure all the actors are ready on time, all the extras are where they're supposed to be. They manage the set basically.
That's a really good description of those differences. Yeah, the production assistant, director's assistant, showrunner's assistant all have a similar kind of vibe in terms of like you're the gopher, you do whatever is needed. There's no like set of rules that are like these are your job
No.
parameters. It's kind of like whatever you have to do, you do.
Also the butt of everybody on set. It's been a recurring theme of my life.
Don't worry. We've all been there. I mean, I certainly was in that position
Oh, yeah.
for a
Okay.
lot. Not a director's assistant
Mm.
directly, but like production assistant, writer's
Right.
assistant. So like, yeah, a lot of us kind of come up in that way. So
I mean, if you
yeah.
can be the butt of a joke, I think you've got a good footing because if you can't take a joke, I'm not sure it's the right place for you to begin with.
Well, I've certainly taken the brunt of some comedy in my day. That's for sure. So, yeah, but I think being able to take a joke is important, is a big part of it. It's like if you want to live in this world of comedy and joke telling, you have to be okay with that, and you have to be, able to exchange blows a little bit, and not have your ego get too bruised.
No, exactly. You gotta like it's not even a thick skin. You just have to realize that people probably wouldn't make fun of you if they really didn't like you. Probably. So I try to remember that. Or
For
maybe they
sure.
actually didn't. They actually didn't give a crap about me. I was like nobody. So, anyways, that's a revisionist history.
Right. Well, okay. So you got this director's assistant job.
Yeah.
How did you transition from that into more writing and producing stuff?
So I'll like speed through assistant directing. So after that job, the same people who hired me for that job hooked me up with an assistant with a first AD who needed a third assistant director or a second. And so for I did that for a while on TV and movies, both mostly lower budget things. Although there's a Nick Nolte movie where you can't see me, but I can show you where I am because I'm giving cues to all the actors to leave the building. Atonement is that what it was? It was Atonement, I think. It was a Paul Schrader movie. But so then I did that for a while. And at one point, the producers of a movie I had worked on invited me in for a meeting, and they asked if I wanted to become a first assistant director. I was pretty young and green still, um, and uh, and I sort of literally in the meeting and leaving saw my life flash before my eyes. And I was like, if I do this, I'm going to be making more money than I've ever made before. I was pretty young still in my 20s. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to get out of it. And I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do. I don't like being management. Um, and so I said no, and I quit assistant directing after that. I did do it a couple of more times, but in my mind, I quit doing it then and said I'm going to focus on writing. I'd made, I've made enough money to go on UI for a while and some savings, and tried to make a go of writing. And That's kind of it. It's like, oddly, I had got no my writing work that I've got in my life has zero connection to the set work I did prior to that. They're not
Wow.
connected.
Wow, that's really interesting because a lot of times you hear there is some degree of crossover, like I knew a guy or I met this person here, but for you it was really separate.
Yeah, it was totally separate. I met a writing partner, a friend who became a writing partner. We were both ready to sort of have a go at the same time. And so we quit our jobs and worked on some scripts. Ultimately, in the few years later, we fell in love and got married, and we are now. And so we said, let's just make a go of it. We wrote specs. We sent them out like by mail to all sorts of people, got lots of rejections. And this friend of Leanne's called kind of out of the blue and said she'd heard that she was writing and did she want to work on this show? And we started working on this show called Saga with a Chinese Siamese Cat, which was like our trial by fire for PBS and Sesame Workshop, and been writing pretty much ever since. There's been some dry periods, but writing pretty much ever since then. Yeah. So
Let's not gloss over this, Dan. So you had a friend who you
yes, I had a friend.
who
Yeah,
you
yeah. We
wanted
started
to
writing before
just
we
started
started
writing.
doing
Hey,
more than writing.
friend, would you like to write and also fall in love?
Yeah.
So we should say this is Leanne
This is
Sawatsky,
Leanne.
who's
Yeah.
your wife and writing
Yeah.
partner, and you guys have
Yes.
written a bunch of
Correct.
stuff together.
Yeah.
So that was your move. That was your in.
Well, I think at one point maybe we started realizing there was too much fiery intensity in the Sagwa scripts, and maybe there was something else going on under the scenes, behind the scenes. So, I guess working together a long time, I don't know, we really liked each other's. Honestly, we really liked each other's writings and became really good friends, and I guess it kind of grew from there.
That's awesome. It's so
Yeah.
funny. I've seen on the podcast, I've had a bunch of like husband wife
Yeah,
teams.
I've heard a few. Yeah, that's funny. I don't meet that many.
Yeah,
I literally don't.
me neither. But then all of a sudden, I started this podcast. I'm like, there's husband wife teams everywhere. If you're enjoying this podcast, do me a huge favor and hit the subscribe button. Another way you can support me is to check out my kids' book. It's called Tiffy and Spiffy Meet a Kangaroo. It's a really sweet story about two preschooler best friends. One is a girl, one is a genie, and they go on magical adventures. It's on Amazon, and there is a link in the description. Please go check it out. And now, let's get back into the zone. I think a lot of writers, actors, directors think that like getting an agent is the be all end all and is going to help them.
Yeah.
In my experience, it is a necessary but not sufficient thing. It's like you need one, but it's not going to be the thing that just propels you. You still need to do the work. You still need to chase the jobs. You still need to write the scripts or direct the movies or whatever the thing is. So, how did you get representation, and how important do you think that is in the career of a writer?
it's tricky. I think it's a bit tricky. They're very used, like, I have an agent here and one in LA both. And I think that they're very useful. I mean, my agents do a remarkable job of negotiating my deals for me. They know what other deals are out there, and they know what they should be asking for, what they should be making sure doesn't happen. So there's things that I'd be worried about doing on my own that I wouldn't want to do on my own. And on top of that, of course, they really give you an image of legitimacy. If you've been vetted by an agent or a manager, I imagine. Then someone is in your corner saying, yes, this person is very skilled. And so it gives a producer or someone who might hire you the more confidence that you can do the job. So they're very useful in that way. Are they necessary? I've known people who don't have them because those people know have them. If there are ever questions about legal things, there's always someone you can kind of ask, for advice on. Um, I don't know they're 100% necessary, but certainly, I mean, certainly if you want to be working in LA or in on anything big, you're going to need one or a lawyer at least to do that. But I don't think they're 100% necessary, but I like mine, and they definitely are value added. Uh, Even though I give them a percentage of whatever everything I make, I think they're worth that.
For me, I've had like acting agents because I started out in acting,
Oh,
and
right,
then
of course. Yeah, yeah.
and then also had writing agents. Well, just one writing agent who was great,
Okay.
but
Okay.
the difference between an acting agent and a writing agent is quite stark. And I
Oh,
wasn't
really?
like,
Okay.
yeah, it's
What's the
like,
big takeaway?
well, an acting agent, first of all, won't take you on unless you either like you kind of have to audition for them in a
Right,
way.
right, of course.
And in my experience, I brought. I'm not sure what it was like for you to get your writing agent, but for me, it was like I brought them something to negotiate. I had an
Okay.
option agreement,
Okay, right.
and I was like, "Hey, I have this option agreement. Can you help me negotiate this deal?" And then through that, it was kind of my foot in the door to like get them to read something, and then they took me on, which I think is if you can manage it, that's a very like good way to get a writing agent is to bring them something as opposed to
Of
just cold
course. Yeah.
calling them.
Yeah.
But when I was getting my acting agent, I was a kid, so maybe it was different. But yeah, they made you kind of do a little audition, and then they would like send you out for things. They're very
Right. Of
active
course.
in terms of like here they're sending you a
Getting you
script,
jobs. Yeah.
getting you jobs. Whereas
Right.
the writing agent is more, in my experience, like on the negotiation side. I think they do put me up for things, but it's like not as in your face as an acting agent because you're constantly getting, breakdowns for auditions and things like that as an actor. So yeah, it was just a different. I sort of assumed that they were very similar, but they're quite different.
Right. I think there's different I think different possibly. Who's your agent? Do you want to say or you don't want to say?
Sure, I'm with characters, Brent
Oh, you're
Sherman and
also
Sir
Brent.
Rod
We're with Brent
Marchand.
too, of course.
Yeah,
We have the same agent. So yeah, there's different agents do different. You should have him on the show. Have you interviewed him?
not yet, but yeah, definitely. I want to have Brent and Sir Rod because I'm with both of them on the show.
Right, yeah, you should totally do that because they have such an interesting insight on the industry that the rest of us don't have. Anyways, yeah, separate from that, it's like, yeah, they do more, yeah, they do more negotiating for me than actively sending me out for jobs. But yeah, I guess the writing and acting thing are different in that way too. It's like
Yeah,
acting, you go out and it's a tough life, man. I mean, it's all a tough. Already's left tough life too, but
yeah,
you go out and you just have to put yourself up. And there's like a lot more churn, I guess. So there's like they can put where writers don't really have the same thing. But I've known agents who've turned down writers because they just didn't like their script. They didn't feel they could represent them properly. So.
So is it a cold call thing? Like if you were starting out today and you wanted to get an agent, what would be the first thing you would do as a writer?
Well, I lucked out. Like I got my first agent. I got my first agent. They called me. So I think they were looking to build a roster, and they'd heard of Leanne and I from some other people. And they called us and asked if they could rep us, and they did. And then they ended up leaving the business. And the Brent, who was the higher up agent of the agency, took us on, like courted us to join him. So, and we've been with him since. And then our LA agent, we worked with Brent to find. So it's been kind of like a team effort, kind of throughout. I do know writers who send samples to agents, and I think it can work if they really like something. I mean, they're also inundated with their own work and the clients they're already representing. So, it's like it's always hard. They've got to find a place a spot for you in who they represent, or a voice that you represent above that's different from everyone else on some level. But I would totally recommend cold calling, because why not? Especially if you have the script sitting there, why sit on it? No one's going to read it then.
Yeah, I agree. And I would just add, you kind of have one shot with them. So like
Right.
if you don't send a script, don't send your first script. don't send
No,
your
right,
don't
right,
send your
right.
second script. So like
No,
make
right,
sure
right.
get people who are in the industry, maybe other writers, to read it, to vet it, because you don't want to blow your chance. Because once they read something that's like terrible, the chances of them reading something else is significantly lower, I think. So make sure it's ready. I would just add before you send anything to them.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about. I think you're right about that. It's like if you can find someone to read your script who's not going to tell you it's great because they love you, when that could be a friend or a parent or a relative or even a stranger sometimes. If you can find someone who's going to be honest with you, and if they think it's really great, then you probably do owe it to yourself to try and get it out there for sure. And then yes, but have that sort of gap before you do it. Don't just like hit, okay, last period, the end, let's send her out.
Yeah, because it's so enticing to do that, right? Because you're like, oh, I put all this effort into it. It's so good. Like, yeah, and to you it is, because I don't know about you, but you look back at like your old stuff and you're like, oh my God, this was terrible. But at the time you thought it was like the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, I'm still learning every day, and so I imagine what I was like 20 years ago when I started. I mean, I don't wouldn't even dare look at stuff because I'd probably be too embarrassed.
Yeah. Okay, Dan, you mentioned you had a story about Are You Afraid of the Dark? I want to go back to that.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, it was not much of a story really. Because I couldn't remember. I was thinking because I knew I was going to be talking to you today, so I was kind of looking back into my history, and I had a vague memory of someone being on Are You Afraid of the Dark when I was there, and so I looked it up. It wasn't Gilbert Gottfried. He was on it. My first credit on a TV show is with Gilbert Gottfried episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? But I remember we were shooting an episode, and this kid was going to be on the show, and the director of the episode was like, this kid has got it. He's like totally gonna be a star. And I remember the time being 20 something. I'm like, sure, whatever. Anyways, it's Ryan Gosling. And I was like, yeah, I guess this guy really knew how to pick him, because it was like smash cut two, he's now Ryan Gosling. That's really the whole story. I don't even know if I ever met him. I think I probably saw him on set, but he was just a kid in Are You Afraid of the Dark at the time. And now, I guess you never know where things are gonna go.
Yeah, it's funny how some people can just blow up. I just had Steve Skaney, a director on the podcast, who had
Yeah.
worked with Ryan Gosling as well,
Oh yeah.
and the other Ryan
Reynolds.
Reynolds,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, it's you don't
You never know.
always, you never know. It could happen to
I
anyone.
suspect these guys, and anyone, I'm saying guys because they are both guys, uh, working really hard. They work really hard to constantly be doing stuff and be out there. And like, that's probably what we have to do.
How much of it do you think is hard work, Dan? Do you think there's like an element of luck, an element of like how good you are at networking? Is it a bit of everything? Like, what do you think?
Uh, I always think about the luck timeline. People talk about the hard work and the fates and destiny timeline and
Mhm.
how things were meant to be and things had to happen this way. But I also see that luck timeline running side parallel to it. There's like a million people, a billion people doing the same thing, working just as hard, doing the same stuff, and the thing doesn't sell or they just don't break through. There's definitely an aspect of luck which cannot be discounted. But hand in hand with that, working hard, making those opportunities by talking to people, getting your name out there, being a good person so that people do want to put your name out there. Um, all those things factor into your luck timeline. Like they feed off each other for sure. There's definitely luck and there's definitely hard work, and they both play a role. Um, and Unfortunately, you can't control luck. You can control the work though.
Yeah, I had Sean Hara on recently,
Oh,
who's
right, right.
another
Oh, that
writer.
guy?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that guy.
he's a friend.
No, he's the best. And he said something that really resonated with me. It was like, the luck is like when the door opens, but you still have to run through and jam your foot in the door. And I think that
That's true too. You have
that's
to
really
take the
how it is.
opportunity when it comes along.
Yeah.
'Cause sometimes it's hard to know it's an opportunity. I don't like working that much, so if an opportunity comes along, my first reaction is always to close the door and be like, I'm kind of busy doing other stuff right now.
Right. Yeah, working. That's overrated.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the
so
takeaway. That's my
that,
soundbite. You can tell someone in the next interview.
hey, you know what? I get it, but that's probably why we went into this business because it doesn't always feel like work. I mean, sometimes it does. But when you're having fun, especially in like a really fun writing room or
Oh
when you're
yeah.
on set, like it doesn't feel like work in the way that like traditional 9 to 5 sitting at a desk work feels.
No,
It's
I mean, anyone who can find a thing they can do that can put them in the zone of where time flies is amazing. And I can find obviously in a room is amazing. I on set it's a little bit more grueling sometimes, but writing a story when you're like in when you're actually in the flow of a story is like, flow is I got that book from the library recently. I can't remember this guy's name who wrote it, but it's pretty interesting. Like the how time changes when you're in a state of flow and it can fly by.
yeah, definitely the I think the forgive the psychology major in me coming out, but I think the term is like the zone of proximal development,
I
which is
like it.
when like you
That's
are,
my next hat.
yeah, yeah, it's the descenso zone of
The
proximal
Descenso
development.
zone of proximal development, right?
Yeah, it's but the idea is that it's like you're in this flow state, right? That you're describing where you're kind of in. That's where they say like you're in the zone, right?
Right.
And you get in this flow state. And the first time I experienced that was when I was playing soccer back in the day when I was a kid, because you wouldn't realize like you're not in your head at all. Like you're
No,
completely
no.
out in the moment. And to get in that place, either when you're writing or when you're working on something else, it's like, how do you get there fast is what's interesting. And for me, it's been like headphones on, music with no lyrics. Like I can't have lyrics going
Okay.
because the words will mess me up. So like a chill vibe, kind of like instrumental or like focus music or something. And then forcing myself to start, even though I don't feel good about it. Forcing myself to just do anything. And then once I'm like 2 pages in, I find myself in that zone. And the first 2 pages were horrible. So I have to like go back and fix them. But getting into that zone for that little bit allows me to like be in that place of like focus where it actually is better.
I
Uh,
like it.
but yeah, just getting to that place is like the hardest part. It's like putting your shoes on to go to the gym is the hardest part, you know?
Yeah, yeah, no, getting the set. Yeah, those I like your techniques. I'll try them out. For me, usually when I'm writing, I can't do it unless I kind of know, unless I have mapped out in my head where what the entire thing is I'm going to be writing for that day.
Right.
And so instead of, in a way, it feels like instead of thinking of what I'm going to write and writing it, I'm just letting it kind of flow through me onto the page and kind of almost living it is totally a lie. That's not true. That's not what's happening. But that is a bit how it feels. And if I have to stumble and stop, I find it very easy to get kind of jolted out of that zone and hard to find it again.
But so what you're sort of talking about is like an outline kind of, right? Like you need a very
Yeah,
detailed.
usually I need a pretty specific outline. I think that sometimes creative choices can suffer from an outline, but I find it much easier personally to follow an outline and work that way.
Suffer in the sense that like it's too railroaded, like it's everything is
It's a
already
bit, everything's too siloed already. You've already decided everything. There's like a certain amount of discovery I think you can find in actually writing a script, the full version of a story, as opposed to the skeleton of a story. A skeleton of a story makes you choose things that fit that skeleton in some ways and cuts off some exploration that you could find from a longer form. But it works particularly well professionally because people need to sign off on stages of work. So, that's how we find ourselves doing that. But I think there are I respect people who do it the other way and can because I think sometimes they can find some really fun choices to make.
Yeah, I started in a more writing in a more linear way where it was just sort of like, prose, I guess. But as I've become more, let's say, quote, professional, I have like I need an outline now. At least the bare bones of what, the beats are. I
Yeah.
think that's because I can't. I need to know where I'm going so that I can
Yeah.
end up somewhere meaningful. Otherwise, it can just turn into mush.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. If you're, yeah, I think that if you're like writing from the seat of your pants, it means you're going to be revising a lot more afterwards because sometimes you're going to write yourself into dead ends that don't work or areas that you're not interested in or whatever that is. But I think it's a valid way to go as well, though. I've been thinking a lot about how more recently, I spent a lot of my life trying to write perfect scripts for whatever, for TV, for myself, or whatever. Like, hit all the right beats. And um, recently I've been thinking, I think the things that I and everybody likes more are things that aren't quite perfect. They're like, that have mistakes in them because I think that's actually more real to life than something that's perfectly mapped out.
Yeah, I want to dig in on this a little bit. So like when you say mistakes, I presume you don't mean like, spelling mistakes and things. You mean
No,
you mean like
beats that feel out of place, that seem like they don't quite matched in the story. Like you still want a story. I still want a story to be satisfying and to be emotionally fulfilling and to be funny and fresh. And I want it to do all the things. I don't want to be boring, but I also think that some of the things people like best uh, are things that seem to have a few spots out of place. You're like, I can't quite figure out why that scene is there. I can't figure out what that character is doing, but they're very memorable. And I think that. Uh, if that is all by design and very well placed, then kudos to whoever is doing that. But sometimes I think it's just someone wrote a thing and it's like, I really like this character, or I really like this scene, so it's staying, even though it doesn't seem to have a place in the puzzle of it all.
yeah, you can definitely get caught up in that uh screenwriter like how-to guide, that how to save a cat, all these books where it's like
Yeah,
this is exactly how everything has to be done. And that can work, and there's been lots of great movies and
of
shows that have
course.
followed that kind of structure. But there is something I think in what you're saying about just having those little oddball things, even in the dialogue. I feel like
Yeah,
dialogue can feel very structured on a page where it's like this sentence is said and then the next person says this sentence, but like real people don't talk like that. Even in this
yeah.
conversation, you just said yeah over a word that I said. Like it's like that's
Right,
how
right,
normal
right.
people talk. Like there's
Yeah,
you're going to interrupt each other, or you're going to get stuck, or you're going to, and I think good actors can build that in around the script, but also
yeah.
there's something to playing with that element as a writer, I think too.
I think so. I think so. As a director, as a writer, as an actor, I think it's like, um, yeah, I had an example in my head, but I forgot what it was now. Oh yeah, I was gonna ask you, if you read, do you know who George Saunders is? Do you know who he is?
The
The
name sounds
author.
familiar, but I
He's an
can't place
author.
it.
He wrote this book called, which I would recommend reading. It's called "Swim in the Pond in the Rain," and he's written mostly fiction. But he wrote this book. It's a based on a course he teaches about Russian short stories, and his kind of thinking about it is, and so it's more about prose and short stories. But it's like his approach to writing is he just writes and rewrites till the sentence sounds right to him, and that sentence makes him want to read the next sentence. And I'm like, yeah, there's like something about that, about the flow. Once again, flow maybe is what I'm caught up on today. But like, you can have things that don't fit. I think uh, I've read a lot of screenwriting books over my life, and I continue to read them. I'm fascinated by the different techniques people have to teach themselves how to write and how people look at writing. And I think a lot of them are recursive. Like, was that the right word? I don't even, that's not the right word, but it's like they've looked at movies that work and then they find the beats that worked in them and say, oh, these are the beats you need to make a movie work. And I think that and people have really followed that, like, from Sid Field to all the way to like Save the Cat recently. I think it's a good tool to have when you're stuck and you're like, what should be happening in my story? But I think to lay out a story beat by beat like that, my gut tells me it's too mechanical and that you're missing the opportunity to discover something really fun and new. Um, And yeah, you can go back afterwards and say, why isn't this working? Oh, because I need my main character to go through a terrible ordeal in order for them to come to the end. Yeah, so that's useful that way. But to start out that way, my gut says it can hurt creativity a little bit.
It reminds me a little bit of there's like a famous story that I'm going to butcher, but it's the gist of it is Mario Puzo, who wrote The Godfather,
Yeah.
when he was, I believe, like he adapted it from a novel, I think. So it wasn't originally a screenplay, and he didn't know how to write
Right.
screenplays. And so he
Right.
wrote this movie, and then it did well, and they wanted to make Godfather 2, and he was like, well, maybe I should read a screenwriting book now that I have to write another one. And the screenwriting book that he happened to buy referenced The Godfather 1 as how to write a movie.
Oh, really?
And you're
Yeah.
like, well, okay, so there's different ways to come at it. I mean, he obviously had some literacy in writing prior to that, having written non-screenplays. But yeah, I don't think there's any one perfect way to come at it.
No, I don't think so. But I do think I think because we've all grown up with so many stories, books, family, jokes, movies, all of it. I think we do have inside us, we know what works and doesn't work on some level. That's why anyone can see a movie and know it's a terrible movie because of story's not working. Um, and so we do all have it innately inside us. But I actually love reading all the screenwriting books because I like to see how other people have thought about it and broke it down. So yeah, there is a million ways of looking at it.
As someone who is a creator, I mean, you created Wishfart and
Yeah.
Guava Juice alongside your wife, Leanne Swatsky,
Yeah.
and John Hazlett.
Yeah.
When you're creating a show, what is the first thing you do? Are you sort of coming at it from a character perspective? Are you thinking about the premise of the show? How do you piece that together when the page is blank?
TV shows are a bit of a different beast than movies for me. Largely, which is not going to surprise anybody, especially I'm talking about like episode of the week shows, like an animated series. When we're looking at something like that, we're looking at can they be repeated 150 times, the same general concept, which is different than a movie. Usually a movie is like, I want to tell this fun story that's been itching for me to tell that's closed and contained. So they're two different things. Um, I think it works in all ways. I think it like for Wish Fart for us, it was Leanne, John, and I were trying to think of shows. We had brainstorming sessions and we liked the idea of a leprechaun. We thought it would be fun to have a leprechaun whose best friend was a puffin, whose other best friend was a ghost. And I think that's based like there's more to it ultimately. I guess, it started actually as I had an idea for an hour-long show about a rich Irishman who wore a green suit, sort of like a CW type show, who would enter your life and grant you a wish. And Leanne and Sean were like, that is interesting, but you write animation, why don't we make it a cartoon instead? And so that was the birth of Wishfart. And then we started saying, as we were spitballing, we wanted it to be original, but also the stories had to hold together. We wanted to have the opportunity to tell the types of stories we wanted, so that sort of put us in an age bracket from the get-go. Um, and like constantly iterating, I think, like just constant iteration to what made us all happy. And so I've worked collaboratively most of my career, and can I take credit for anything ever? I don't think I can, but I don't think anyone else could either, because it's like it's so collaborative, everything that it's like I don't know where I wouldn't have had this idea if someone else didn't have that idea first. So
Right. The off the wall idea that sometimes isn't the right fit can ultimately lead to something else that may work.
that
And
none
so,
of us would have thought of. Like, would I have thought of a leprechaun and a ghost girl and a puffin all like living together, granting wishes that go wrong? I don't think so. I don't. Maybe, but it wouldn't
I,
have been the same.
I mean, one of my favorite sentences that you've just said was the birth of wish fart. It's just like those words in that order
The birth
just,
of Wishfart.
just I don't know if anyone's ever said those words in that order.
No, I'm sure they haven't.
I mean, it's one of those titles that's so unforgettable. Did you immediately know, like, how did you come up with that? And did you immediately know it was a great title? And Like, did you have to sell that
Uh,
to a network? Because I feel like that
yeah.
might be a bit of a hard sell.
So no, we didn't come up with the title at first. It was I think our working title was Leppy, was what we kept calling it, Leppy,
Uh-huh.
which sounds too much like leprosy. So I don't think it was ever gonna fly. And then we could not think of a title for the longest time. And then John's partner, Christine Mitchell, who's also a writer, she came up with it off the top of her. Like at some point, she came up with it. It was like basically she said it's like a brain fart because I always go wrong. She's like it's like a brain fart, but it's a wish. So you make the wish that is off the top of your head and it goes wrong. We were like, oh, it's great. So we called it that. And then we tried forever to change it after that. I have lists and lists, hundreds of alternate names, which maybe we should have picked one of them. I think that it struggled. I think we struggled to sell it in the US because it had fart in the title.
Mm.
Um, I know people, it's weird. It's also another like always got two edges to it. It's like, would anyone have remembered it if it wasn't called Wishfart? Maybe not. But I also suffered. We suffered because of it because people think it's a type of show that is not. It's like there are no farts in Wishfart. That's like one of the jokes to us as creators.
Right.
It's like it's not a fart-based show. It's kind of like we think it's kind of smarter than that. But I don't know. It
But
is
it's
what.
a great title. I mean, it is such a memorable title, and now that you explain it like a brain fart, it makes so much sense too. Like it's like the perfect. I think it's great, but I can see
Well,
how it would be marketability wise. There might be some resistance.
yeah, yeah, it was a little hard selling in the US, but we had big fans elsewhere, and because of strange ways that things work in life, we actually have the rights to it. So we're currently trying to revive it as either as a movie. Well, we do more TV too, but either we're thinking of movie or books right now. So we're like, everyone wants IP. I own an IP. It's not an IP that maybe anybody wants, but I want to see more of it. So maybe more Wish Fart coming everyone's way. Who knows? I hope so.
That'd be amazing. I hope so too.
Yeah.
Books is an interesting angle now too because there is such a hunger for intellectual property. I've taken one of my ideas and turned it into a book, and now I'm doing a second, like a sequel to it. I'm gonna try and make maybe five of them, a
I
little
heard you
book
talking
series.
about it on one of your other episodes. I have not read the book yet, but I will pick up a copy, but I'm very impressed. That's really cool. I heard you talking about how you had to, had the cost because you hiring artists is expensive and but I'm very impressed.
Oh,
Congratulations.
thank you. I mean, it was a little sort of COVID project when I was bored and had nothing to do, and now I sort of feel like, hey, you know what? This is something that is worthwhile continuing to do, and I've found an artist who's going to do it at a reasonable price, and they're fun stories that I want to tell, and it also just flexes a different muscle. It's like it's a rhyming couplet story, like
Okay,
so,
cool.
and it's very short because of some of the limitations around the artwork. So it's
Right.
very short, cute little stories.
Is it shorter than other books of that type? Like, is
I
it
don't think so. It's like around 10 to 12 pages or whatever, like little
okay?
rhyming couplets.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
they're short, but they're cute and they're like good little bedtime stories for kids. But the intention eventually would be, hey, like I have 10 books that have sold X amount of copies on
Yeah, yeah,
Amazon.
yeah.
Like let's turn this into a TV show, and it's sort of the reverse of what you of what you would kind of expect. It's like you would normally go, oh, hey, I'm going to write this script, I'm going to submit it, I'm going to try and get this into a TV show. But now there seems to be more of an appetite for this intellectual property, and so I thought, well, what if I did it the other way? What if I
Yeah.
started with the IP?
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's great. Also, which I'm sure you know already, but you have way more control as an author of a book, if someone wants to make it into a series than the other way around, than if you just pitch a series and get it made. So, you'll have more say if when it happens. So,
You also created Guava Juice,
yeah,
which was an interesting thing because it was based around a YouTuber, Roy.
Roy
Oh,
Fabito.
Fabito, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm just curious, like having created Wishfart, which was more traditional kind of network show, as opposed to creating Guava, which was more, centered around YouTube and then also
Mhm.
aired on this creator's channel. Was there a big
Mhm.
difference, like in terms of how you approached that show?
So Wishfart was sort of born whole cloth from my imagination and John and Leanne's imagination. Uh, Guava Juice came to us not as a show ready to go, more as a an idea that they want that this company wanted to make a animated series based on this YouTuber who at the time was one of the biggest YouTubers. And so the difference there obviously is that we were working with some raw materials already. We know we have a star, we know we have certain elements that they've decided they want to see. And so that was supposed like the show came to us as like they basically wanted to clean up a Bible and then pitch the show. But of course that never pans out that way. So we ended up being, I think, redeveloping it over several years. And the biggest difference well, it was like produced in many ways like a real show. Like it was produced by a studio who did amazing work, Top Draw, and through Mainframe in Vancouver, and they did an amazing job on the animation. But the difference in one of the biggest differences we're working with a star. So we've got like he was very easy to work with, and he voiced his own character. But you know, you had to. I don't think we would have sold the show if YouTube wasn't looking for projects to produce. And we made sure that it was true to his persona. So, like, you're working with a persona that you have to keep kind of honest to the persona that he presents online. That was like probably in some ways, the biggest difference.
Yeah, it's really interesting because now there's such a shift, it seems like, to the YouTube world, and like more creators from YouTube are um, going into traditional
Yeah,
media.
yeah.
One thing that actually occurred to me that was kind of just a silly observation is that Wishfart, in some ways, is the comedy animated
I
obsession.
said that when it came out.
You
That's
could,
exactly what I said when it came out. I'm like, did you see the new episode of Wishfart that's playing?
yeah, it's just like, I mean, they could have called obsession Wishfart, like
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that's
I know.
really
It's
what
like
it was.
I mean, you know, it's a monkey's paw. Be careful what you wish for story.
Right.
But yes, it was totally could be a wish for story. And yeah, there are more people coming out of YouTube. I think when we made our guava juice, that wasn't working yet in the same way. Also, we're seeing more. I think we're seeing more like creators than actors, maybe. Like, not that Roy is an actor, but he is a creator, but he wasn't making films the same way, Backrooms and Obsession guys were. Um, but also a big difference was like YouTube financed the Guava Juice show. Like they were actually producing animated series for a brief time. And so what's happening now is not that. What's happening now is people are making their own things, gathering enough views that they get scouted, I think, um, and then end up making bigger movies, which seem to be working at least for these two exceptionally well.
Yeah, it's just speaks to how there's no direct way in. There's so many
There's no
possible.
direct way in. That's totally true, and I think that's changing all the time. I think we're going to see. I think because of the success of Obsession and Backrooms, and even what's the other one, Iron Claw. Uh, I think we're going to see. This is totally conjecture. I don't follow numbers or even follow anyone on YouTube really. But don't know that you need to have 100 million views in order to make that happen. I think that there are. I read a sort of Matt Maloney who does the Town podcast. I read an article he wrote about Backrooms, um, and the trajectory of Backrooms. And it kind of started by an assistant working for Sean Levy's company, scouting, whose job was to look at YouTube and find people who might be interesting. And that's where it came from, basically. He saw this guy. It was gone through many iterations and many different companies to finally end up where it is, and writers. But they like he saw this guy who felt like a talent, and they kind of groomed the project from there on. So I don't think it was based. I don't think it was. It feels like when we hear the press that it's much more one to one. Like this thing was huge, and now this movie's huge. But I think it was much more of a someone spotting him, figuring out how to make a package with the right people to sell it, and obviously there's a ton of marketing behind it as well to make sure everyone knows about it. Uh, but there is no path. I would say, yeah, there is no. I don't think there's any direct path right now.
Yeah, it's an evolving, constantly evolving system. It's like back in the day, in the Seinfeld era, it was like you would do stand up and you would get scouted that way. Now you can get scouted on YouTube, or you can submit a script, or you can have a book. Like it feels like there's so many paths that it's like it's almost difficult to know like what is the path of least resistance for me. It's like
Yeah.
how do you figure that out? It's like it can
Yeah,
be
that is an
tricky.
interesting question. It is an interesting question. It's an interesting question for me, like as I'm thinking about what I'm going to do next. But I think that I listened to a podcast a little while ago. I can't remember who it was. Was it Tom Segura? It was a stand-up comic talking about, no, it was, I don't remember who, it doesn't matter. And they were talking about how they don't need the dream of the stand-up comic now isn't even to get a network show because they make way more money touring than they ever did before. And it's like, I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what this person was saying. And I think that I also, yeah, I don't think the end goal for a lot of people is the network show anymore because I don't think those have the same kind of audiences they used to have. They certainly don't have the doing 26 episodes a season. They're eight episodes. I think it's great. You can get great eyeballs on, everyone wants to get eyeballs on things. But I do think the flip of that, which didn't exist when I was coming up, was you could make a thing that you love and have it on YouTube tomorrow, which is like, that is pretty amazing. And that is pretty amazing. That's just pretty amazing. There's no buts about it. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I've talked about this a little bit, and so I won't continue at length, but I have a web series that we did that with, and it was this little idea that I'd been noodling on for years, and we figured out how to make it for no money, and we shot it at a comedy bar, mostly here in Toronto.
Okay.
And it's this little series, 5, 6, 7 minute episodes, 10 episodes about these comedians, and it was one of the first things that I had produced like sketch comedy and stuff like that, but it was one of the first like narrative pieces that I like produced.
Right.
And it, watch it if you want, anyone
I
listening. It's
will.
fun, it's silly, it's not it didn't turn out how we wanted it to turn out for a
No.
million reasons.
Yeah.
There were story problems, there were acting problems, there were camera problems, there were lighting problems, there was audio issues, a million problems. But the value of just producing something and putting it out into the world and also learning through that experience was invaluable. It was the most fun I've ever had on set, hands down,
Yeah.
easily the most fun I've ever had, probably in life. And even though it didn't go anywhere, never got picked up, never did anything, it just lives on my YouTube. It is one of the most fulfilling experiences I've ever had. And so I would encourage anyone who's like wants to be in this world but doesn't know how to do it, pick up a camera, get some of
Yeah.
your friends,
Use your
and
phone. I
yeah,
mean, the quality, like when I started out, I was like we made short videos on VHS with my friend's VHS camera. No one's ever seen them because I don't know where they are. But now you can make a thing. You can pick up, yeah, your friends, make a thing, put it up. You'll learn from it. You'll have a good time more than anything. It's like it's never been easy to break through
yeah,
ever. And in some ways, maybe it's harder than ever, but it's also harder than ever to like go the not the legitimate route, to go the traditional route of like, because there's so few shows being made or movies being made anymore. So I don't know, you might as well make a thing you're happy with, like have the most fun you've ever had on set, because you can, especially if you don't have a family or you don't have a lot of bills to pay. If you've got the ability to take the time to do it, man, I would do it.
yeah, totally. Not only just for the fun of it, but also for like the learning experience. Like I can't
Yeah.
tell you how much I learned from being in like that showrunner type position. But I was like picking up coffees and
Doing
making sure the
everything. Well,
craft was
yeah.
okay, and like acting, and also like talking to the director. It's like you're doing 93 jobs because you have to. And so
Yeah.
you really learn like and then when you take that to a real set, you can go, okay, like I actually get what this person's going through today because I've been there and I've had to do that kind of thing. So for me, it was so super, super valuable experience.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna watch them now. I haven't seen them yet.
Well, you know what? The funny thing is the web series in it itself, like was a cool way to like get a thing from your brain onto like out into the world. But what I actually have more fun with now is like the comedy shorts. I would make like these little short clips, like kind of like Curry Barker and his partner did, the Obsession guys, where they would make
Yeah.
I think their channel was called That's a Bad Idea, and they would
Okay.
make these sketches. But I'm just a guy in an apartment with an iPhone. So I would make little sketches of myself, just like
Yeah.
playing both roles and like doing stuff. And it was just so fun. Some of them got 3 views, some of them got, 40, 50,000 views. So it's like, it can be a little creative outlet for anyone who's like, just wants to learn and try stuff and take a risk. Like it is a risk to put something out there, but at the same time it's like if you're not taking a risk, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly. And it's like, yeah, there's no, I mean, I take a bit of issue with like companies using this as their development model to try and find projects that
Yeah.
because like it's so cheap and, spend a bit of money to like f foster ideas would be pretty nice. But like as an individual, yeah, I think it's like, yeah, exactly. Do it. Do it and have fun.
Dan, what about like some of the projects you've worked on that have had like established IP that you've come on as a kind of a gun to hire, like things like
Mhm.
Georgia the Jungle, Franklin? How do you approach coming onto a series like that where you're not in the position of like creative control, but you
Mhm.
have to sort of fit into the creative of someone else's vision?
I think that's like in a lot of ways that's kind of the skill of the TV writer, right? Is mimicry. And so I tend to you come on to you someone calls you for a show, you try to absorb everything you can about where it is and what they're doing and read the scripts and then try to find the style as close as you can. Some showrunners rewrite everything regardless of what you do, I think. Others are, I think they always appreciate I think they always appreciate whatever you can, if you can give them something that's not a mess. If you can give them something that hits, that is structured properly for a story, where it's clear what beats are coming in what order, um, and that it's kind of fresh and not rehashed with things that have been done a million times. I guess that's what I try to give them when I come on a show. Like I try to facilitate. Basically, I try to facilitate. My job, I feel, as a freelancer, and sometimes as a story editor, is to facilitate whose ever vision it is. And if it's my vision, that's great. It's easier for me to facilitate my own vision. But if it's someone else's, I kind of enjoy that part of the puzzle. It's a kind of a puzzle of like figuring out who has the say, who has the vision for this, and making their life easier.
What do you do? Because for me, like the part of one of the most challenging parts of freelancing is dealing with the influx of notes from different cooks in the kitchen. So there will be like, a head writer, then there's going to be some network notes, then you might have production notes, then you might have like consultant notes or educational notes. How do you go about like amalgamizing all that into something that's still funny and engaging and has a through line of a story that makes sense? And what do you do if you disagree with the note?
That's an interesting question. I think that well, I like as I mentioned, I kind of like the puzzle aspect of things, and so a bunch of notes in some ways is part of the puzzle. It can be I just like one of the great things about the Guava Juice show when we did it was that everyone was on the same page. So which is always an amazing experience to have, where the writers, the actor, the producers, the network, everyone is kind of very clearly all making the same show. We're all making the same show, and so every note feels additive and will make a thing better. Sometimes you get a bunch of notes and it seems like they're killing the fun, or they're don't get it, or they're have no sense of humor, or and that is a little trickier. But my goal, I've worked with writers who always push back on notes, a lot of notes. We'll push back. I'll push back if I really disagree, if I think it breaks the thing. But normally I try. So there's usually a hierarchy, like follow the money. Where's the money coming from for the show? Uh, and if they're the people who are paying the most, then you kind of have to listen to their notes because they're the de facto bosses. And then the showrunner, if they're disagreeing with you, side with the showrunner because they're the one who you're working with day to day. But usually try to follow the money. If it's like a minor partner and their note is completely opposite what the primary bread giver is saying, then kind of you can address it, but you kind of have to ignore it. So, but I try to address we almost always try to address all the notes if we can and still make the thing great.
What about if there's ever like disagreements? Because like you, Leanne, and John are sort of
Yeah.
a team. Like if there are there disagreements between the three of you, and how do you mitigate those?
Uh, We think of ourselves a bit like a mini writing room. Like, so we spend a lot of time breaking stories together. One of us will write a draft, and then we'll go over it together and revise it. We've had big disagreements. Usually, I think them disagreeing with me. They may say differently, but I feel like it's not their fault. It's my fault. I will point out something that I think isn't working, like a little thread, and sometimes that derails things, um and I won't let it go. And so they'll get mad at me, but I think it's important. I stand by my opinion, like that. I think that something isn't working, and it's going to derail it in a bigger picture as opposed to getting the script done. But normally we don't disagree. We kind of know that once again, it's not one person's vision, it's the vision of the show, it's the project that's more important. And so we're always working together to make that great, to make every script great, to make every joke great, to make every moment great.
It's a tricky thing too, right? Because it's like you all have the same goal. Like anyone working on a project has the same goals to make it awesome, but you might just come at it from a slightly different angle, or you might see something that down the road affects something that the other person maybe isn't thinking about yet. Like there's so
Yeah.
many different factors that can play into it. So yeah, being having that relationship where you feel comfortable enough to be like, hey, I don't know if this is working because of this other thing, I think is an important piece of it. It's like because you can be afraid to speak up sometimes in rooms, especially if you're one of the freelancers or a
Yeah.
younger writer. It's like
Oh, for sure.
you can be afraid to speak up because you don't want to sound dumb or you don't want to pull a thread that's going to derail everything or whatever. But I think at least being comfortable enough to voice those things and then have a showrunner or a team that you can trust that's like heard, but like that's not what we're going to do. We're going to stick with this, or we're going to, or maybe we should explore that. Like I think those things, having that level of comfort is critical to actually making the show good. Because if you don't feel that comfort to be able to say that, then something might get lost or missed, or
Yeah, for sure.
even just a lost opportunity, right? To make something a joke or whatever.
Although I remember on Are You Afraid of the Dark, I because of my job as I was an intern, I was invited into the script reads, so I would be in all the script reads, and I don't remember what the story was. One of the scripts had a really big like logic problem, and
Okay.
I said something, and it was not my place to say anything.
Right.
I was
That's a good
like,
point too.
I was starting out. I wasn't part of a writing room. I was an intern, and if I'd really had a problem, I should have said something to my boss outside of the room, and they would have probably said, "That's not our problem. We're post production." We do have our places, but yes, we try to when we're running a room, and I think everyone I ever work, all the writers I work with, we do try to foster a openness to making sure everyone feels that their voice is heard, because yeah, you never know where the best ideas are going to come from. So yeah, this whole hierarchy thing is a terrible idea.
Well, it's true to some extent. There needs to be someone who's like, the driving force with the long-term vision and all that stuff. But like, yeah, I think you should be able to, and not to contradict my literal point of 1 minute ago, but also you need to not just be the guy that's, pulling every
No.
single thread,
You
right?
have to be additive. No one wants the logic police. I can be the
Yes.
logic police. I don't do that when I'm in a room for other people. I do that when I'm in my own room,
Right.
because I'm so focused on making the best thing possible. But I don't think it's my job to point out, because sometimes what seems like a logic problem isn't. It's just you have to figure out the additive way to make it better, as opposed to like tearing it down. No one wants the person who's naysaying everything. Nobody does. It doesn't help.
For sure. I want to ask you now, a slight gear shift here.
Sure.
I ask everyone about this now because I interview so many creative people. I want to know their take on AI. What do you think
Oh yeah.
the biggest opportunity and the biggest challenge with AI is these days for writers?
I've been listening to your podcast, and I know you asked people that, so I was thinking about it a little bit,
Yeah.
and my take on it. I do like I've been trying to use AI since it sort of rose a couple of years ago. Um, I waffle back and forth. I think I know you and I we're both big fans of magic,
Yes.
and I think AI is a bit of a magic trick. And I've said this to other people. I think it's like we are all amazed by it because it seems to be real. And so it's a magic trick. But the more times you see a magic trick, the less magical it is. And because
Mm.
you start seeing how it's done and you start seeing that it's an illusion. It's not magic, it's an illusion. And I think a bit that that's what AI is like. And I think it can be very useful. I think we're all going to use it as a tool, like a search tool and a way to like write a short synopsis when it's something that no one needs except for like to check a box on something. Like there's definitely some things it is great at doing. But it is just a magic trick. And like I look at old things, like a few years ago that let's say I used it for something, I'll go back and look at it. Like it looks so much like AI. And like we can
Mm.
start seeing it the more we use it. And I don't, maybe it's going to keep getting better, maybe. But then the question that arises to me is why? Like, why would we want to use AI to replace creative endeavors? To save money? I guess to save money. But
Yeah,
then,
I
like,
mean,
will people want to see the thing? Like, we
right.
already are, I think already, maybe. I could be wrong. Like, this is just, I'm just opinionating, But like big Hollywood movies, the big, huge budget Hollywood movies, the ones we kind of loved when we were kids, there was people making the special effects. And we've got to a point now where anything is possible. So nothing's really amazing because anything's possible. And that's just going to increase with AI. Like if everyone's got access to the same magic trick, like nothing's amazing about it. And I think that applies to things that aren't just visual too, like writing too. If AI is a model that's predicting what more the most popular answer would be, it's just going to produce and everyone's got access to it. It's just going to start producing the same thing over and over again. I think it's like an opportunity. Maybe it goes back to like it's also going to want to make things flawless. Maybe that's part of the reason I'm thinking about how flaws are a key to what we do because I think people like authenticity. I also think so that I'm not sure that's an answer to what I think about AI. I think it's a useful tool that we'll all use. And I also think everyone's always seem to be trying to figure out how to use it without anyone knowing they're using it. It's like secretly how they're pulling the strings. But yeah, right now I don't feel totally threatened writing wise. I would say if anyone's thinking about like writing a Bible using AI art, I imagine that everyone at Disney and Netflix sees a million concepts with I've seen big studios use AI art. I'm like, I don't think you guys should send that to the network. It's like it looks like AI and like everyone knows it's AI. So
Right.
like I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm like, it's neat.
it's an interesting one. I've talked about I've sort of given my take on it already, but so I won't rehash it. But the one thing that really annoys me more than anything is that like I was a big M dash guy and now I can't
Yeah,
use
me
M
too.
dashes because
I've
I'm
gone
like
back. I
because I'm like, man, everything's gonna read like AI now because it's over like famous for overusing M dashes. I'm like, damn, I can't now I gotta learn how to use a semicolon.
I
But
stopped using M dashes. I was just doing some writing earlier before I get this call, and I've started using them again. I'm like, screw it, man.
yeah,
I can't take away M dashes from.
let's take them back, Dan. Let's
Yeah.
take those back.
Although I like parentheses too. I've come to love brackets.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Dan, thank you so much for being here, man. It's been great getting to learn more about your story. I always like to end the podcast by asking about a time you stepped outside your comfort zone and how that shaped your life. Does anything come to mind?
I knew this was coming because I've been listening to your podcast and I've been thinking about it. I feel like a lot of what I've done in general does step out. I hate stepping out of my comfort zone, but I guess everybody does. That's why it's comfortable. Um, when we were making Wish Farts, because of the way because we're the producers of it, even though we had a big studio behind us. We had to get the writing started, but we didn't have any money yet. And so in order to close financing on TV shows, you have to like have close the gap. You have to possibly take out loans, even if money's going to come later. So we had to take out loans for $1 million each with everything we have as collateral. I don't have much. But that was the way the financing had to work because we wanted to get the writers pay. We wanted to get money coming in. So that was very scary and out of my comfort zone. Because if things had fallen apart, we'd be on the hook for like me, Leanne, and John, and another producer would all have to like pay $1 million back. So that was very much out of my comfort zone. But because of that, like had we not done that, we wouldn't have been able to make Wishfart the way we wanted to. We wouldn't have been able to hang on to the rights. And so it's enabling me now to continue to try and figure out how to bring it out to the world. So I know that the reason you asked that is because stepping out of the comfort zone is very important, and it is like everything you do. Like me even going to like making a movie and putting it on YouTube. It's like stepping out of a comfort zone. That's where you find the interesting things.
For sure. Well, yeah, that certainly takes a lot of courage and a lot of self-confidence and belief and trust in your partners and everything. So, yeah, I respect the hell out of it.
Do you
That's
share do you share a different one with every guest where you stepped out of your comfort zone?
no,
Oh no.
I should. That's probably a good. It's probably a good angle for it. I mean, I've done it a million times, but as I've gotten older, I've done it less. And one of the things that one of the reasons I wanted to start the podcast was because it was kind of outside of my comfort zone. Like I hate the sound of my own
Oh, of
voice. I
course.
hate
Yeah, yeah,
hearing
yeah.
myself talk. And sometimes I'm like, I watch episodes and I'm like, I said that dumb thing. Why would I, why would I say this or that? But part of it for me was stepping out of my comfort zone to do this. And that's why I'm interested in other people's answers
Yeah,
all the
for
time,
sure.
And I did it like as an actor, I did it as a stand up. One of the first time I tried to do stand up in front of my high school, which was an insane idea to do that for the first time in like my high school talent show. I mean, there's just a bunch of times, and every time it's been something that I can look back at and go, that was dumb, but I'm glad I did that
Yeah,
because
for sure.
it took the courage or it took it built something in me, whether it was a resistance to rejection or an ability to be more open or outgoing or whatever it was. And so those moments I think are really important in people's lives. And so I'm always curious about
They
other
are
people's.
formative. Yeah, like I was the one, I mean, the other big one, obviously, I told you earlier was like when I stopped being an assistant director and decided to become a writer. That was like,
Yeah.
it's hard. It's really hard, especially if it's comfortable. Yeah, that's why it's comfort zone.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, thank you so much, man. It was great learning more about your story and getting all your tips and advice. And thank you so much. Is there anywhere you'd like to direct people in terms of like anything that you want them to watch or see? Guava Juice, anything?
Yeah, I guess, I'm not pushing anything specifically today, but Wishfart is, you can find some of it on YouTube, which I always like the more people to see it, the better. I'd like to do a Wishfart podcast where where go through every episode and how the story came about for every episode. I don't
Oh my
think
God, you
anyone
should do
is,
it.
and no one's asking for that, and no one wants to hear it, but I would like to do it as a way of like preserving memory and also sort of maybe an exploration of creativity. But before that, just go watch some episodes. I think they're pretty fun still. So
Amazing.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It was great having you.
Thanks, Mike, and I'll get a hat to you.
You definitely have to now.
Okay, all right.